Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ancient Warfare Answers with me, Murray. I believe by the time you see this one, it will be Happy New Year. So looking forward to another year of lots of answering your questions about ancient warfare-related topics, which is, of course, what we do here with Ancient Warfare Answers. You ask questions, whether by postcard, look, new postcard, lovely, or email or commenting on a previous video or podcast. I get it. I see whether I can answer it or whether I think I can answer it in 10 minutes. And then we answer it. You can, of course, be a patron on Patreon of the podcast, Ancient Warfare, no, podcast / Ancient Warfare. And you can back us at one of three different levels: Legionary, Optio, and Centurion. Now, we've got a couple of questions, and questions have been flooding in, so thank you. Probably, as you will have noticed, if you've asked a question, it's a little bit of a delay getting to them because there's so many for me to get through. Anyway, we've got a question today from Shabbi. I'm assuming I'm saying that correct. And it's a really interesting one, which I'll get to. There are, of course, some other things I'd like to say, some small, short ones. Obviously, in 10 minutes, I can't mention everything. I did one on single combat, didn't mention Spolia, Pima, and didn't mention the Battle of Issus. Apologies, can't get to everything. And of course, many times there's, forehead slapping of, oh, should have mentioned. And one other that's come up really interestingly, when I made the answer about light and heavy and medium infantry, there was a response that it was very much wargaming that led to that. However, what I've found is actually translations use light, medium and heavy infantry before wargaming becomes a real thing in the 20th century. And a lot of the translations in the late 19th century, which I don't think can be influenced by wargame thinking, use those terms. And so therefore, I actually think it's something that comes out of the Napoleonic era with grenadiers, heavy infantry, light infantry. Anyway, not sure if that's something I can maintain. Anyway, getting on to Shabbi's question. Hi, my name is Shabbi and I'm writing from Israel. I'm a big fan of the podcast. Hello to you, Shabbi. Here's a question, or a shower of questions I'd like to hear your thoughts on. How vulnerable were armies during the Bronze and Iron Ages to lightning strikes, whether on the battlefield or while marching, given their use of metal weapons, armor, and formations in open areas? Could such vulnerability have influenced ancient religions, particularly the widespread beliefs in storm and lightning gods in various unconnected cultures like Zeus, Thor, and Indra? For example, could events such as lightning strikes swaying the tide of battle, if such an event is even plausible, explain why so many societies independently developed lightning-wielding deities? Best regards. Wow, isn't that cool? Yes, I believe there's very limited evidence of lightning strikes, but there is some which we'll get to. And some of it people would go, well, that didn't happen. But as we know from golf or cricket or wherever, lightning strikes can occur at any time. Funny story, when I visited Delphi, there was a lightning storm as my wife and I visited that on our honeymoon, and it sent a busload of tourists scurrying back to their bus. But I refused to be cowed and hid under a tree, which I know is the worst possible thing you can do in a lightning storm. But we then had Delphi to ourselves for about an hour before other tourists caught up with us up the hill. But the funny thing, of course, about that was what it showed to me was these lightning strikes in Delphi. You can absolutely understand why the ancient Greeks made Zeus the Thunderer. And so there's amazing, it's just like, I am so frightened right now. That must be a god's displeasure. And of course, we know that lots and lots of Roman legions used lightning bolts. There's lightning bolts on coinage, not just in Rome, but in Greece earlier. There's lightning bolts on sling bullets, all sorts of things about, lightning striking. So clearly lightning striking is not an issue. They understand the idea of lightning striking. When it comes to warfare, however, you've got a little less to go on. There's quite a few references in the Bible, for instance, in both the New Testament and the Old Testament, about lightning strikes or thunder accompanying weapons. So in Psalms 18, he sent arrows and scattered them, and lightning bolts and routed them, things like that. And you've got the idea of lightning as an analogy. The Battle of Adrianople, for instance, and several others, the speed with which a strike occurs from the cavalry at the Battle of Adrianople, the Gothic cavalry. It's like lightning striking. So it's meant to be unexpected and rapid, which I think is a fabulous image of how quickly this attack can occur and surprise the enemy. So again, in the lightning and thunder as God's wrath in the Old and New Testaments. Well, this is just all Old Testament. 2 Samuel, Job, Psalms 135 and 144, Zechariah. So lots and lots of ideas of that in the Bible, but there's some in ancient warfare. And peculiarly, a lot of them occur in the same time. Now, this is weird because it's actually in Marcus Aurelius's Marcomannic War in the 170s AD. And we get 2 occurrences of lightning happening. So the SHA records that lightning struck a siege engine, and that is shown, we think, on one of the panels on Trajan's column, scenes 10 and 11. But there's also the miracle of the rain. Now, that story is given to us in several different versions, mostly in Dio Cassius's epitome by Xiphilinus. So now Xiphilinus gives an explanation, which is sort of a glossary to Dio Cassius, and this is what Xiphilinus says. So this is, we're not sure if it's book 71 or 72, chapter 9 of Dio. Now, the incident I have reference to is this. Marcus had a division of soldiers, the Romans called a division a legion, from Melitene, and these people were all worshippers of Jesus Christ. Now, it is stated in this battle, when Marcus found himself at a loss of what to do in the circumstances and feared for his whole army, the prefect approached him and told him that those who were called Christians can accomplish anything whatever by their prayers, and that the army they chanced to be a whole division of this sect. Marcus, on hearing this, appealed to them and prayed to their God. And when they prayed, their God immediately gave ear and smote the enemy with a thunderbolt and comforted the Romans with a shower of rain. Marcus was greatly astonished at this, and not only honoured the Christians by an official decree, but also named the legion the Thundering Legion. It is reported that there was a letter of Marcus on the extant on the subject. Now, the explanation is wrong. There wouldn't have been there was no legion from Melitene. There is a legion that had been stationed in Melitene. They wouldn't have all been Christian at that point in time. And certainly the Thundering Legion exists from the time of Mark Antony onwards. So all of that's kind of false. But the idea, Fulminata, of course, is another one of these legions that associates itself with lightning. There is the idea, of course, that lightning strikes the Quadi and the Marcomanni as they are attacking the Romans. And so the Romans are basically surrounded in enemy territory. They're parched, they're dying of thirst, and rain relieves them. So they're drinking as they fight, and then lightning strikes the enemy, not the Romans. And they're sent flying, and some of them try and seek shelter from the lightning in the Roman ranks, and of course get killed. So that's the story there, which is probably the most famous story of lightning striking during a battle. It's interesting in the sense that it doesn't really occur elsewhere, but it's fascinating in the sense that the idea of seeing a lightning strike on the enemy, and how it's taken by Xiphilinus and others to be, that's a Christian thing, because one of the other things about Marcus Aurelius at that time, he has a lot of priests of various different religions accompanying his army. And in several other versions, other priests claim credit for it. Because, of course, this is in the aftermath of the plague of Lucius Verus, one of the worst plagues in the history of the ancient world, and the decimation of the armies means that there's lots of recruitment going on. And also, to perform the purification of the army, lots of priests are brought in from various different popular cults at the time to perform these rites. We've got evidence in Lucian of one, and several others as well. There's an Egyptian priest in one of the versions of that story. So it's fascinating that you've got all of that occurring, and this amazing, lightning striking the enemy. Now, we've also got other depictions of the same incident, such as on Trajan's column, which don't include the lightning, just the rain. Very famous picture of a rain god descending on the Romans during the battle, but there's no lightning strikes in that version. Now, the other thing, of course, is that there are a couple of occurrences of St. Elmo's fire, one in Julius Caesar and one much, much later in Procopius about Belisarius in North Africa. So these sorts of weather events which occur in battle or two armies are fascinating. It doesn't seem to be something that they are susceptible to because of what they wear, or, marching in open fields and things like that. we do have weather putting battles off. And the other thing of Greece especially was even a plane, there's going to be enough heights nearby that are going to attract lightning more than you might. You'd have to be very unlucky. And of course, this is not the day and age of social media, so someone had to see it and live to report it. So that might be why we don't get more of them. But there are a couple, and it's certainly there in the way of talking about battle and, God's wrath, all different religions, gods' wrath being associated with lightning and thunderbolts, and the idea that the thunder is the ill will of heaven. And so all of that's sort of tied up. So in a way, you're almost surprised that there's not more of it being associated with lightning and thunder, not more stories of a lightning strike at just the right time to, show divine favor. Which is a sort of a really interesting caveat. It's like, why you could have used that? Why didn't you? Even especially a legion like Fulminata that could have used it much more than it did. So I hope that answers your question, Shabbi. And you can of course ask us a question. You can listen to the big podcast and even the Ancient History podcast now. So I look forward to seeing you for another episode of Ancient Warfare Answers. Thanks. Bye.